O means like male?
Yeah, right, but I don't know if one word's like
okay.
escuela. I don't know. I could say escuelo if I didn't know if it was escuela. All right, wait. Yo piensa que mi es la español de yo es wait. How do you say it?
Mi español.
Mi español.
Yeah, mi español. It's because I tried to change it how you would say it in English. All right.
Yeah.
Mi español es más bien de tu inglés.
Oh.
Yeah. You said that. Well, mostly that's true. What does that mean?
Yes.
Yes. Por eso no hacemos tu trabajo, mi
Just kidding.
No te creas.
No te creas. No te creas. Yeah. Come on, that was pretty good. Was that not? Yeah. I know. Keep going.
Yes.
Okay.
Working on it.
¿Por qué estudiar la economía? Nosotros estudian la economía porque la Great Depression. Wait, don't they do that in Spanish? They just take really hard words to say in English and they just say it in English? It's not like they don't do that in Spanish. They say things in English.
Oh my god.
Alright. So, alright, now back to, we'll go English. Alright, so, governments didn't understand how to fix a depressed economy with a 25% unemployment. So the Great Depression caused a lot of problems for our economy. And we actually started to study macroeconomics because of the Great Depression, right? Now, it was created for two things. One, to measure the health of the whole economy, to take the temperature of the economy to see how we're doing, right? The other is to guide government policies to fix problems. So how do we fix problems? We do that through micro measurements or we know how to fix it through microeconomics, and we also use macroeconomics to take the temperature of the economy, to see where the economy is at. Sorry, it's coming up. No. All right. So, Unit 2 is macro measurements. So, for all countries, we have 3 economic goals, right? That is to promote economic growth, right? So, we want our economies to get bigger, right? We want to limit unemployment. We don't want a lot of unemployment. We want to make sure that we have a little bit of unemployment. We want to keep prices stable by not having a large fluctuation in inflation and deflation, right? And so in this unit, we're going to analyze how each of these are measured. What up? Sure. Okay, so the first thing that we're going to go over is economic growth. All you need to write is 1 through 3. Yeah, you don't need to write that part. Okay, so economic growth. So how does a country measure economic growth? So, how do we know how well an economy is doing? Economists, what we do is we collect statistics on production, income, investment, and savings. And from that, they're able to formulate the national income accounting, right? And this is important measurement of the growth of GDP. Now, GDP is the dollar value of all final goods and services produced within a country's borders within a year, right? Or in 1 year. So this is important because there's different things in this definition that we need to pay very close attention to. One being the dollar value, right? GDP is measured in dollars, right? So if we look at Mexico's GDP, we're not looking at it in pesos, we're actually looking at it in dollars. Does that make sense? So it can be easily confused that you want to look at that number and be like, oh, it's Mexico, they use pesos, but not for the GDP. We look at it, we convert it into dollars. Yes? All right, final goods. Now, this doesn't include intermediate goods. Intermediate goods are goods that are being produced to and shipped off from one country to another country to produce one thing. So for example, in Mexico, right, we have the maquilas. Some of the maquilas make intermediate goods. So those intermediate goods like, I don't know, engine blocks or cylinders that they put onto an engine, those would be intermediate goods. And because of NAFTA, we'll send them part of an engine. They'll put the cylinders on it or whatever, right? And then they'll send that complete engine back to us, and then we put it into the car. Now the reason we don't count intermediate goods is because they're counted in the final good, right? So when we sell the car, right, we're not going to break down the price and be like, cool, the engine was this much. Or if we counted the engine the first time, we would be double counting. Does that make sense? And then in 1 year, it's annual performance. Now they usually check the GDP, I think it's quarterly. I think they do it 4 times a year. They check what the GDP is at every 4 months. Every 3 months. 3 months. Okay, let's move on. So, what does the GDP tell us? It tells us, just like calculating our own finances or our own income, it tells us how the US's finances are doing, or income is. So, how do we use GDP? We compare it to previous years to see if there's any growth. So we want to know by looking at if we look at 2016, and then we compare that to 2017, 2018, 2019. We want to make sure, or we go back 10 years to 2007 and see if there's any growth in the last 10 years GDP-wise, right? We want to compare policy changes. So we want to know, how do policies affect the GDP, right? Is it allowing us to produce more, the policies or the regulations that governments are implementing on us as American citizens? So then we want to compare it to other countries. We want to see if we're better off than, let's say, China or the EU, right? So which 15 countries do you think have the highest GDP?
Do we tell them here? Well, China, Russia, Germany.
Okay, Germany would be counted in European Union.
Okay, European Union, I guess.
Uh-huh. Where do you think Mexico is on that list?
They will be like, if it's on the list, it will be like number 10 or like lower.
10 or 11?
Yes.
Mexico?
No, that'll be pretty low, right?
Like 4, I guess.
5?
Is the European Union like as a whole together? Okay. Then it will be like 5, around 5.
Okay, so here's the
See, I
list
told you
of
to do 11.
countries. Yeah, it's crazy that you got it, 11. I was like, what the? Yeah, so Mexico comes in at number 11, right? And the U.S. coming in at number 1. These statistics were taken in 2013, so they might be a little bit different right now. But number 1, 2, and 3 They switch places very frequently, so it just kind of depends. Sometimes China's up there, sometimes the EU's up there. Just we go back and forth, right? Mexico, you have to remember that they have all those maquilas, so they do produce quite a bit, right? And then they also have they used to have a Volkswagen. Volkswagen used to be really big in Mexico City, I think. They made a lot of Volkswagens down there. All right, why don't we go ahead and end it there for today? I'll just stop it and take it. And then, can you just cut the Spanish part out? Yeah. I didn't realize I was recording.
Well, I'm pretty sure I didn't even get it because I started recording right when you started the note.
Yeah?
Yeah. I think I might got a
Just
little bit
double
of that,
check it, yeah.